What if you knew exactly how to build the business and life you want? Hey you, I'm Sarah Grace, host of the Victress podcast and coach to Victress women like you, building life on her terms. You won't find the hustle or grind around here. We do things different. Yes, we are committed to our business and we are committed to family, faith, and fitness. What does that look like? A 12-hour work week. No more. Freedom Fridays? It's a must. Being present with those we love and bringing God into all areas of life. I'm showing you how to understand your unique business strategy and how to align that strategy with God. Stick around. I'll make sure you know exactly what to do next. Hey you, welcome back to the Victress podcast. And this is Sarah Grace, your host. Delighted to be back with you as we dive deep back into the Victress journey. We are on stage 7 out of 9. And man, it is a good one. You may think from the title, it's not a really great episode. This is such a good one. Oh my word. We are talking all things about the enemy today. And there is so much in store. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you don't know what the Victress journey is, and you want to catch up, I would highly recommend that you stop right now and go back to episode 27 and get the overview of what the Victress journey is all about, and then watch the sequential episodes that will catch you up all the way from stage 1 right back here. You'll meet me back here at stage 7 where we talk about the enemy. And really the Victress journey is all about a framework in which how we can view our own lives and our own endeavors of how we learn to become who we were always meant to be through whatever vehicles and experiences God has in front of us. So dive back into episode number 27 if this is unfamiliar to you so that you can catch up. I will be here waiting for you, excited. I wanted to thank City Farm Girl 74 for her awesome review on the podcast. She said, for the last 20 years, I have been fascinated by the hero cycle, right? Which is the male version of the Victress journey. I apply it to all I do, but there has always been something incomplete for me personally. And I devoured your series on this, the Victress journey, and was blown away. I love this so much. I am so excited to have found you. Thank you for your genuine enthusiasm and wisdom. City Farm Girl 74, thank you for taking the time to put down a review and talk about the things and the ways that the Victress journey has impacted you. Because as we listen to the hero cycle, there are things that are different. There are things that are different when we are a Victress as opposed to a hero, different things that we struggle with. And I'm so glad that you've been able to find a way through those unique experiences through the Victress journey. So thank you for your review of the podcast. And you listener right now, would you do something for me? Would you pause whatever platform you are on right now, whether you're on Stitcher, you're on Spotify, you're on Apple Podcasts, can you just pause it right now and take 90 seconds to leave a review for this podcast? That is the very, very best way for our message to get out there, for it to be shared, for it to be visible. We don't use our social media platforms to really promote this podcast at a high level. And so your rating and reviewing is gold. It is literally like gold. So thank you so much for taking the time. If you want to pause it right now, leave a review. I would be so incredibly appreciative. Okay, let's get going on the Victress. Now, really important right from the get-go that we together get to recite the Victress Creed, okay? The five things that the Victress stands for. This is what, by definition, a Victress woman is, because one of the things that she stands for is the very thing she is about to face today with the enemy. So a Victress is a woman who is victorious, a woman who lets God prevail. And if you don't know what that means, go back to the special episode about the Victress, okay? Here are the 5 things that she stands for. Number 1, she tells the truth about herself and her circumstances. Number 2, she sets, maintains, celebrates, and embraces boundaries. 3, she sees her Victress journey as a gift to her loved ones, not a hindrance. 4, she embraces her unique power, her successes, the amazing parts of her life, her beauty, her influence and power, and invites others to do the same. She stands firm in being unwilling to sacrifice family, faith, or her relationships to achieve greatness. That is a victress. Are you on board? Woo! Let's go. Okay. Truth, actually, telling the truth about ourselves and our circumstances is actually our greatest ally today as we dive into stage 7 called the enemy. Okay. The weapon of choice is going to be truth. All right. So the 6 stages we've been through so far, stage 1 is the spark. Stage 2 is the victress. Stage 3 is the gate. Stage 4 is the gathering of allies. Stage 5 is the journey. Stage 6 is the win and the illusion. And stage 7 is the enemy. Now, the enemy is the obvious enemy. Okay. In the hero cycle, it is also the obvious enemy. It is Voldemort for Harry Potter, right? It is Darth Vader for Luke Skywalker. It is, I'm thinking of the Lord of the Rings. It is Mordor. What's that big Saruman? Saruman. There we go. It is the big eye in the mountain, right? Like that is the big enemy there. And so it's the very, very obvious enemy. And it actually is not all that different for the victress. So for Moana, it is Te Kā, okay? That is the demon that she has to face, right? Mulan, it is Shan Yu. She knows who that is. Okay. Elsa, it is Prince Hans. Eve, it is the serpent. I even thought about Mary, the mother of Christ, and I thought about what is the villain there? And I would imagine as a mother that the real villain there for her was the event of the crucifixion. Right. It was the thing that she was always meant to face, that was always looming in the background in her future. And she was facing that. So how do we wrap this in? If you don't have the Te Kā standing in front of you, if you don't have Shan Yu there to declare who he is and to defeat, how do we tie this into us as victresses? How do we do that? So the villain is the obvious threat. So ask yourself some questions, okay? Say, what is the common thread to my destruction as a victress? What is that common threat to my soul? What is the common thread of the common threat? How is my confidence attacked? How is my ability to progress attacked? Often the villain for the victress, I will say nearly always for the victress, is it is something highly emotional. And in the world of like self-help and development, you will often hear people talk about, oh, there's a story behind that. You're believing a story that isn't real, or you're telling yourself a story. And that's some of the verbiage that is used in the self-help world. I want to push it even further, okay? Even further. Yes, it is a defining story in your life, this villain that you are facing. And it's this, it's like a villain. It's like a tempest. It takes on a life of its own. It's very much like Te Kā, the demon coming out of the water where we feel unsafe, right? It turns mountains out of molehills, okay? But I want to go even further. Not only is it a story that we tell ourselves, more importantly, is that it is a destructive conclusion that we have accepted, okay? And I'm going to give you some examples. If this is like a newer concept to you, first, welcome. This is going to be really enlightening and fun, but it's way beyond the story that you are telling yourself. It's the fact that it is a destructive conclusion that story has taught you, that you have accepted and you are living with, and that we are not facing as victresses. Okay. So let me give you a couple of examples of destructive conclusions that we have made as women. Okay. These are actual ones from either my own life, from my clients' lives, from examples that I've seen. Here are some examples, and let's see if any of these resonate. Okay. I am only valuable when I keep the role of a peacemaker. That is where my value is held, is because I'm a peacemaker. I don't rock the boat. Okay. I'm always left behind. I'm just meant to be someone who is left behind. Nothing works out for me. I'm the person that when I hear about these extraordinary stories, it's never me accomplishing those extraordinary things because nothing works out for me. Okay. Working will end in massive regret. Okay. Last one. My calling in life, or my cross to bear, is to suffer rather than have joy here on earth. Okay. Those are some examples. Some of them may be like, oh my word, that is mine. And some of them may be a little bit less obvious to you, but may spark some ideas of what that destructive conclusion you have come to is. What is that villain that we get to face today? Okay. The really fascinating thing about this destructive conclusion that we have accepted and that we are living by is that it impacts our life everywhere. Okay, so let me give you my own personal example from that list. I have largely believed that I, Sarah Grace, I am just someone who is left out. Okay, I'm left behind. I am left out. And that was just part of what my experience here on earth was meant to be, is that I was left out. I witnessed it professionally, in partnerships. I experienced it in my relationships with siblings or parents or something like that. That I was the one that was left out, and I would always joke about being the third child. That was just how it was meant to be. Is that I was supposed to be left out of this opportunity. And then as I started to expose it and say, wow, I really feel like I'm left behind, all of a sudden I saw it everywhere else. I was being left out of a ward a bunch of years ago. I felt like I was stuck behind the piano in the primary, and I felt really left out. And it was, a very woe is me kind of scenario, but it was starting to show up everywhere. This villain, this destructive conclusion that I am always meant to be left out. All of a sudden, I saw it in my marriage. I saw it in my mothering. I saw it in my business. I saw it in my ward. I saw it in my relationships with my family and my siblings and my parents. And it was everywhere. It was cancerous. It was absolutely everywhere. And I had accepted that was just part of who I was meant to be. Sarah Grace is meant to be left behind or left out. Okay. So once you are able to declare and see that destructive conclusion, which is your villain, you may go through a period where you see it everywhere. You see it everywhere. Now, often because I'm a business coach for high performance entrepreneurs, I often am able to be part of this process to help them expose some of these destructive conclusions that they have come to. And we can so easily see how it's impacting the business, right? How it's impacting the business. Now, by me feeling like I'm always left out, I always look for opportunities when people tell me no when I try to collaborate. And so therefore, I don't collaborate, right? That's how I used to do business, is I just didn't collaborate because I was always meant to be left out, right? So it's so easy to see it in the actual business setting, but fascinating to look beyond and say, how has this impacted a marriage or a partnership? How has this impacted my family relationships? How has this impacted how I deal with money? How has this impacted how I pursue my passions? I mean, it is my friendships and my religious settings. All those things can be impacted dramatically by this one destructive conclusion that we have made. So the goal for today on the podcast, we're going to talk a lot today. We are critically important that we face this villain head on. And the way to do that is, the goal for today is to help us see what the destructive conclusion is that we have made and are living by, and to name that villain. Okay. My goal is, by the end of this podcast, you can fill in a sentence similar to, I'm Sarah Grace, and the destructive conclusion that I have made is that I am always left out. I hope it can become that clear and real to you. Okay. Because then we can go through a process to grieve it and to allow that to no longer be a conclusion that we have made, to defeat that villain head on. And that villain is just as strong as Shan Yu. That villain that you are carrying and facing is just as bold and scary as Te-Ka. And we are going to go to the steps to tackle it, right? Okay, so you remember when we talked about the Victress Creed at the very beginning, and I said that truth is going to be the weapon of choice, right? Because a Victress tells the truth about her life and circumstances. And this destructive conclusion that we have come to is something that we are living as if it is true. And I want to introduce you to a dear friend of mine from my days in Louisiana. Her name was Lindsay Willis. She will definitely not be listening to this podcast. The greatest neighbor of all time. She's wonderful. And there was a time we were sitting on our front lawns in the beautiful spring of Louisiana before it got crazy hot with a ton of bugs. And we were sitting there, and we both had kids really close to the same age, and we were talking about how hard it is when people are mean to our kids, right? Or when our kids are mean to other people, and just that burden of motherhood that is so hard. If they're doing well, they came that way. If they're being naughty or cheeky, then it's all your fault because you're a mom, right? I mean, it was just this really fun conversation. But something that I saw her display over and over with her kids is she had this little girl come up, probably around 7 years old, and she would come up and she would say, Mom, oh my gosh, this neighbor girl, she said that I was dumb. Mom, she said I was dumb. And Lindsay Willis, in all of her wisdom, took her dear daughter by the hand and she said, Oh, I am so sorry. Huh. But let me ask you, is that true? Are you dumb? And she would just put the question back on the 7-year-old, right? And this little girl would say, Well, no. And she'd say, Okay, all right, move on. And it was kind of this kind of experience where the real pivotal point in this moment was, can I ask myself in that moment when something destructive comes towards me and attacks me personally, do I dare face it and say, is this true? Is it true? Allowing us the chance to really define what is true is what life is about. Okay. I listened to a podcast recently of someone that said, I don't want to be wrong 1 second longer than I need to be. This is your moment, my friend, is for you to embrace and recognize that destructive conclusion and say, wait a minute, is this true? Okay, I'm wrong. This isn't true. I'm not going to be wrong 1 second longer than I need to be, and we can move forward past it. So let's talk about an example of this and focus on an example of how we can apply what I would call like the Willis principle, right? The Willis principle to make this really make sense here. So there we have in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we have what we call auxiliary leaders, right? And they can work both in like a local community setting, and then they can also work on behalf of the entire church worldwide. And we have a group of 3 women that are known as the primary presidency of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, right? And they are basically over the operations of the primary, which is ages 18 months all the way to age 11 to 12, closer to 12. But age 11 in the primary program, they're in charge of that age group for the entire church, millions upon millions of members. They are in charge of the development of the primary program worldwide. And her name is Camille N. Johnson. And she has this really, really fascinating opportunity because Camille Johnson is a lawyer. She has always been a lawyer. She is a very effective lawyer. I'm not going to give the name of her firm. You can look it up on desertnews.com. But she is a lawyer. And when they did this article about her, this article from the Deseret News said that she has received messages from other Latter-day Saint career women. So these are members these are women who are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who are career women, who have wondered if their work somehow disqualifies them from church callings, meaning serving in the church and impacting the church's growth. Okay. What was her response? Okay. So these are women who are facing something brutal. They are facing a villain. They are facing a destructive conclusion. They have made the conclusion that by me working, it is going to be a disqualifier for me to serve at a high level of operation in my church. That's the destructive conclusion that they have come to. They don't know it's a destructive conclusion because they believe it to be true, the demon that they are facing. Listen to her response. Oh, sisters, whatever your life experience, bring it to bear. We need you, and don't disqualify yourself. The Lord does not disqualify you because of your professional life, of your need to work, or your desire to work. It's not a disqualifier, she said. The Lord needs you. He needs your experience. He needs you to bring that to bear. Close quote. Oh, I've got all the goosebumps from the amazing President Camille N. Johnson. Okay. Couple of things that stand out. Don't disqualify yourself. That to me is a call to say, you have a choice here. You have a choice to work and serve in the church or to not work and serve in the church. Choose to work and serve in the church or not work and serve in the church, but don't disqualify yourself. Don't point the finger at working, that it's going to disqualify you, et cetera, et cetera. I love that. And then the second one that she says is the Lord doesn't disqualify you. It doesn't matter if you have a professional life, if you need to work, or if you desire to work. It is actually your experience that he needs within whatever it is you're doing that will further his work here on earth. He needs you to bring that to bear. Isn't that fascinating? Really what an invitation I see here is Camille and Johnson is asking us not to hide. She is asking us, just like President Russell M. Nelson, who we believe to be a prophet of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and also for the world, when he calls us to hashtag hear him, he is asking you to qualify yourself for the journey ahead. He is asking you to qualify yourself for the exceptional miracles that the Lord will provide to his faithful. Asking us from both Camille Johnson's mouth and the prophet's mouth to bring those experiences to bear and to receive answers from him is the ultimate invitation to move forward on your journey. That is what we are being invited to do. I want to share one other personal experience in this same realm. So when we apply Lindsay Willis to the previous example, is it true that if I work, I can't serve properly in my faith? Okay. This is an opportunity for you to challenge that, to face that demon and say, I don't think it's true. I don't think it's true. I actually think it's really, really possible that I can work and serve in the church and get creative and make that happen. Right. And I'm not saying this happens overnight. Okay. But we're going to face this villain starting today. Okay. My own experience was back when I was in Louisiana. My husband was in residency at LSU. And during that time, I had a couple of babies during our time there. And with one of those babies, I experienced severe postpartum depression, severe. And as part of that, I was trying medications and working with a doctor, and I was trying keto, and I was trying just pretty much anything to get my head above water. And the demands of my husband's schedule did not allow for a lot of help from my amazing Greg at that time, because he was a resident. So it was a very, very lonely period when I was battling with postpartum depression. And I felt hugely alone. And because of that, my mental health just rapidly declined. And I remember calling one of my sisters. I have 3 sisters, and I called one of those sisters in absolute tears because my doctor was recommending, and I'm going to get tender here. My doctor was recommending that I get on medication, and I had never been on medication before for mental health. And I had come to a destructive conclusion, and I told her this. She just said, "What are your worries about being on medication?" And I said, I worry that if I get on medication, that someone in the church is going to find out, and that it's going to lessen Greg's opportunities to serve in the church because his wife is on medication for mental health. Okay. That's basically what I said. And in that moment, I mean, I'm just sick even saying it out loud here on the podcast. So thank you for letting this be a sacred space. That's where my head was at. Okay. That was the destructive conclusion, the villain that I had accepted in that journey, is that if I get on medication and receive help, someone's going to find out, and it's going to impact his growth and development and his ability to serve. Because who would want to allow a man to serve who had a wife that was suffering so much and was on medication and all those things? And obviously we've come a long way since that time about mental health. And we had Cheryl Caudal on here last week talking about mental health. And I'm so glad that conversation is happening so much more boldly. But man, that conversation was not happening back then. It wasn't. So I had this constructive conclusion I had come to. And luckily my sister pulled out the Lindsay Willis approach, and she said, "Do you think that is true? Do you think that that's true?" And we talked through it, and I was able to get on medication, and it absolutely saved my life. Saved my life, saved my family. It saved my experience in Louisiana, being able to face that destructive conclusion. And no, it wasn't an overnight thing, but it was facing the villain head on, that maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was wrong about that destructive conclusion that I had determined. So I'm grateful for that sister in that moment that could help me define that truth. I'm grateful for Lindsay Willis, who has taught me to boldly ask myself if certain things I believe are true or I'm thinking are true, because it really can change everything. Now, originally, when I sketched out this podcast and outlined it, I thought, gosh, this would be so great to be able to outline like 3 of the most common lies that the enemy tells us, these destructive conclusions that I see over and over and over again. And I started to outline it. And while I came up with 3, I wasn't able to fill in all the information that I felt like it really, really needed to make this cohesive. And the more and more I thought about it, I thought really there are 2 very unsuspecting things that the enemy likes to force us to believe or to accept that slow us down from furthering our work as a victress. So I'm going to give you 2 more examples as we conclude this podcast. And then the goal at the end of this is for you to take all this information and say, where is mine? What is my destructive conclusion here? Okay. So the 2 lies of the enemy are as follows, and they may surprise you. The first is that I must have the perfect body. Okay, wait, what? Are we on the right podcast? Wait, what? Okay. This has to belong here. I absolutely refuse to go through this episode and not talk about this. Okay. I believe it is a hugely destructive conclusion that the enemy has used to create a certain impact on us as women. Because my belief is if you can get a woman to hate her body, just think of the miracles that you will impede. Think about it. This is how the enemy works. If you can't get a really good, solid, faithful person to do evil and to do sin, then you distract them and you preoccupy them. And it's almost the same effect. It is still a halting of the work and a halting of miracles. I have this memory of my dear sister and I, the same sister that helped me with my mental health crisis, that when I was young with her, we would put on a record and it was a strawberry shortcake. It was kind of like an exercise record where she'd take you under the sea and you'd swim and you'd do all these things and whatever. And we would sit there and play the record. And when it was all over, it was like 20 minutes long, right? We would run up to mom's bathroom and we would step on the scale. We were young, really young, step on the scale to see if we had lost any weight during that exercise. We were really young. And I grew up with a very, very like body positive mom still to this day. I am so grateful for the home I grew up in. And my mom noticed it. And guess what? After that moment, we have never owned a scale in our house since. My mom threw it away. She absolutely threw it away. Okay. And I'm so grateful for her courage that way. When we talk about loving our body, hating our body, one of the things that has helped me is knowing that caring for my body includes discovering its gifts and talents. You being here on this journey, exercising your brain, exercising your ability to work with others, all those things, discovering your gifts and talents through the divine is part of caring for your body. That is part of your body. Push it, challenge them, challenge that body to do extraordinary things. And my real challenge to you is to figuratively toss your scale. Get rid of the things that draw us away from what is real. If that is beauty Instagrammers, if that is a scale, if that is a blog, if that is trails of thought, if that is whatever that is causing you to be distracted with this lie that you have to have the perfect body, toss the scale. Now, I couldn't end this without talking about Beauty Redefined. I recently bought their book, More Than a Body. It's essential reading. My daughter's reading it right now as well. Let's talk about a blog post of theirs. I'm going to read directly from their blog and also link it in the show comments if you want to be able to look into like further light knowledge about this topic. Okay. The topic is not picture perfect, how to bounce back from a body image blow. Okay. I'm going to read straight from them. In a world where girls learn from childhood to monitor their appearance at all times and where public identities are carefully crafted online at every waking moment, a picture speaks more words than ever. For some, the sight of a photo she deems unattractive is enough to spark thoughts and reactions directly related to one of our favorite, like the bad kind of favorite subjects, body shame. You'd think someone who has spent the last decade researching that subject would be immune to the effects of it, right? I should be unflinching and invincible in the face of bad photos of myself, right? Ugh, I wish. Let's use my own personal example of being captured in a cringe-worthy pic to illustrate what body shame can do to a gal and how to fight that shame with some healthier options, shall we? I'm not one to hide in a photo. I actively resist the temptation to self-objectify or hold myself back from activities or photos because of concern over what I look like while engaging in those activities. I posed for a group photo and thought nothing of it until Instagram and Facebook notified me of a newly updated photo that had an unanticipated effect. It made me feel sick because I hated the way I looked so much. It struck a yucky chord in my brain that told me I was disgusting and everyone on the planet was going to see the documented evidence of how disgusting I was. Sounds asinine, you say? Yeah, definitely. I asked myself, what is the worst that could happen because of this? And my answers were ridiculous. Someone could see me and think I look fat and ugly. That's about as bad as it got. And guess what? That's their problem, not yours. And it doesn't mean anything in real life. You can demonstrate these aspects of self-compassion by journaling and sharing your experiences with other women who undoubtedly deal with the same objectifying experiences you do. You are not alone in your disruptive experiences, I promise. When women learn to value their bodies for what they can do rather than what they look like, they improve their body image and gain a more powerful sense of control. So challenge yourself to be active. Run a race, try a new Zumba class, and prove to yourself that your body is powerful and useful for more than looking good. Plus, we need to set and achieve goals outside of appearances. Raise your GPA, volunteer, put yourself out there. Feelings of empowerment come from achievements, and they add to your sense of control. Placing higher priority on how we feel and what we do is key to shutting down body shame. Pretty cool. That's the end of their blog post. Okay. So are you seeing how this amazing blog post from Beauty Redefined is teaching us that we can become hugely distractive from being active in our families, from being in groups, from being active online, even from enjoying activities, from choosing to go to activities, and also in those quiet moments from choosing to act with self-compassion with ourselves, all because of our body. I will say it again. If you can get a woman to hate her body, think of the miracles that you will impede. My challenge to you is, as a victress, do not allow yourself to be a victim of the enemy, to be distracted and preoccupied with the perfect body, so much so that you are missing out on the miracles that you get to be part of. A last thought there about your body, our bodies, is that those with bodies have power over those that do not. I believe that as a victress. And William Clayton said, we came to this earth that we might have a body and present it pure before God in the celestial kingdom. The great principle of happiness consists in having a body. The devil has no body, and herein is his punishment. He is pleased when he can obtain the tabernacle of man. And when cast out by the Savior, he asked to go into the herd of swine, showing that he would prefer a swine's body to having none. All beings who have bodies have power over those who have not. Close quote. If you are at war with yourself, loathing such a huge part of what you are, then you will be impeded in your growth. Face the enemy head on if this is your enemy. You cannot hate this part of you and receive the true and sacred power that flows through your body at the same time. Face the enemy. The second and last lie that I think is hugely common in the world, maybe more specifically with women, who knows, maybe with men too, is the lie that we desire an easy life. So we've already faced this desire head on at the gate. We knew we were going into something uncomfortable. We already chose that path to the right, to embrace peace, growth, fulfillment, allies, the unknown, and a summit. Hooray, a win. But the victress journeyers, they are different, my dear friend. I can't think of a single victress, an entrepreneur that I've worked with as a coach, whose goal in business is the private jet or the 20K Rolex watch or the unlimited shopping sprees on Rodeo Drive. Like, that is not my crowd. That is not my crowd. What she wants, what a victress wants, is she wants something different. She wants something different, even if those opportunities came to pass for her. She knows that she wants meaning, purpose, confidence, fulfillment, and progressive peace. That is the focus of the victress. I want a meaningful life. I want an adventure-filled life. I want a miracle-filled life. I want a healthy life. whatever your spark was, whatever that initial win was that got you all, psyched out, whatever it was, all this is a tool. Whether you're on the PTA, whether you're building a business here with me, your business is just a tool, just a vehicle to get you to this kind of life, a fulfilled life, an adventure-filled life, a purposeful life, a peaceful life. Your business is simply a tool. It's a tool that will get you to a purpose-filled life. It's just a tool. That's why we can celebrate with one another. We actually want the same thing: meaning, purpose, fulfillment, happiness, adventure. We want very similar things, and the vehicles will simply be different. We are all aiming for something great. I just want to close with a quote by Jeffrey R. Holland, and I hope by the end of this, you can name the enemy. Can you name the enemy? Quote, with any major decisions, there are cautions and considerations to make. But once there has been an illumination, beware the temptation to retreat from a good thing. If it was right when you prayed about it and trusted it and lived for it, it is right now. Don't give in to that being, the enemy, who is bent on the destruction of your happiness. Face our doubts, master your fears. Cast not away your confidence. Stay the course and see the beauty of life unfold before you. Jeffrey R. Holland. I love it. Beware the temptation to retreat from a good thing. Do not choose to turn away from the villain in this moment. Face it. Face it head on. Ask yourself, is this true? Is this true? If we can make that decision to face it, Elder Razban from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints talks about we are in a world of miracles. For I, the Lord, have put forth my hand to exert the powers of heaven. Ye cannot see it now, yet a little while, and ye shall see it, and know that I am, and that I will come and reign with my people. Yes, we are on stage 7 of the Victress journey, but my dear friend, stage 8 is the divine. He is coming. Quote, don't you quit. You keep walking, you keep trying. There is help and happiness ahead. Some blessings come soon, some come late. Some don't come until heaven, but for those who embrace the gospel of Jesus Christ, they come. It will be all right in the end. Trust God and believe in good things to come. My dear friend, the divine is coming. Hey you, thanks for listening to the Victress podcast. You can find us on Instagram at Sarah Grace Live. You can also find us on YouTube under the same name. If what you listened to today really, really resonated with you, would you rate and review it for us, please? That is the biggest, most important thing that you could do to show your support for the message that we're sharing here. So glad to have you as part of the Victress podcast community. The Victress podcast is written, produced by me, Sarah Grace, edited by Rachel Johnston, and spread across social media by Mikkel Davis and Brittany Jones. Super grateful for the Sarah Grace Live team.